when he was here in Rochester and wanted to, get a question answered, and he knew we were here, and we were. We were able to solve his problem. So, it's that dependability that you folks have come to rely on that keeps us going and on the air and keeps Rob saying, okay, yeah, you can stay another year.
And it's the kind of thing where no amount really is too small. Everything counts.
Every dollar,
Every dollar counts. Every pledge counts. I know that there are times when it is difficult to make the size of pledge you would like to make, and that's okay. A small pledge is better than no pledge.
Yeah.
Every dollar helps. Every dollar counts. I know that's a trite saying, but believe me when I tell you it's true. So please, if you can, please head on over to jazz901. And of course, you can do this all week. All those of you, there are hundreds and hundreds of you who download the podcast every week. Hundreds and hundreds of you. If each and every one of you joined at the $35 level, we'd be done.
All right. So to those of you right now who are folding laundry, to those of you right now who are loading the dishwasher, to those of you right now who are doing yard work, we are talking to you.
Yeah. Or if you're jogging.
Yes. Walking the dog.
Not the people who are driving.
Nope.
Unless you
can
pull
wait.
over.
You can wait. We'll catch you when you get home.
Yeah, everybody else, you've got a phone, you've got a computer.
Add it to your to-do list that when you get home, that's the first thing you got to do is go over to your computer and go to the jazz901.org website and make your pledge.
We've said parlous times before, but we mean it now. We need your help.
Yeah.
This is not a joke anymore. So please reach deep into your hearts and your wallets. And while you do that, I will read the news. In a survey comparing views of a nationally representative sample of about 5,410 of the general public to a sample of 1,013 AI experts, the Pew Research Center found that experts are far more positive and enthusiastic about AI than the public, and far more likely than Americans overall to believe AI will have a very or somewhat positive impact on the United States over the next 20 years. The public did not share this confidence.
Okay.
Only about 11% of the public says that they are more excited than concerned about the increased use of AI in daily life. They're much more likely by 51% to say they're more concerned than excited, whereas only 15% of experts share that pessimism. Unlike the majority of experts, just 24% of the public thinks AI will be good for them, where nearly half the public anticipates they will be personally harmed by AI. While Pew could not ensure the sample was nationally representative of all experts in the AI field, which is very broad and hard to define, the survey represents a first step in gleaning how the people most committed to advancing AI view emerging technologies. People most committed to AI view emerging technologies today versus the average person. Learn to read. The fact that widespread adoption of AI is contingent on human trust. Of course, we're all interacting with AI every day as more and more devices and assistants are AI powered. The problem is that it's been shown that many large AI models will outright lie if it helps them reach their goal. People who work in the AI field prefer the term hallucinate, but it's lying. But many people who use AI because they're too lazy to do their own research will parrot those lies, and the lies grow. For Americans, the future of AI apparently looks bleak, not because it possibly spells the end of the world, but because 83% don't think it will make them more productive and 94% believe it won't make them any happier. Only 13% of Americans think they'll ever get to a point where they trust AI to make a decision for them. So, our poll of the week at soundbytes.org, that is Bytes with a Y, Francis would like us to remind you, is most Americans think AI won't improve their lives. Their choices are, it already has. I think it will. I'm skeptical. And oh, heck no. So far, we've got 33 votes. And the more negative of the two, I'm skeptical and oh, heck no, are ludicrously far ahead of the more positive of the two.
Okay. So that's in support of this news item that you're reading,
Right.
that the general American public thinks.
Now, on the other hand, we're real mostly. So give us a call. 585-966-JAZZ. It's 966-5299. Toll free 800-790-0415. That's after, of course, you make a pledge at jazz901.org. Hit that big red donate button and make the pledge.
So where do you fall on this, Nick?
I personally am in both camps. I use AI to look up weird things in programming languages.
Okay.
When how do I do this in Python?
Right.
And sometimes
Okay.
that works.
Right.
Sometimes it's a massive load of bullpucky.
Right.
On the other hand, I have rarely had a good experience asking it general questions.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
I've tried it over the past year or so when I need it to help me compose an email. Like, I'm about to write an email to my boss to tell me how to justify going to this conference that I want to go to.
Oh, sure.
And I'm not quite sure how to word things, or I'm not sure what structure to use. It does an excellent job of giving me a general structure, of describing what to put where, and gives me reasons I might not have even thought of to do this. For those things, it's very, very good.
Now, before you go on, do you then just send it, or do you then edit it?
Oh, no. No, I edit it heavily.
Okay.
I use it as a starting point, not quite as a template, but just as an example to draw ideas from and to borrow from.
That makes sense.
That works really, really well. But no, every time I ask it a specific question, or if I do recall that I was asking it, show me an example of a computer program that I could use to solve a Sudoku.
Right.
And it said, oh, well, most people who do this kind of thing would use a backtracing algorithm, and they would do it like this. And I said, okay, show it to me in Python. And it said, okay, here's an example of it in Python. And I said, okay, show it to me in AppleScript.
Sure.
Just to pick a language that's way, way less likely to be out on the internet. And
Right.
it said, okay, yep, I can do that. And I did it. And I took the AppleScript, I copied, I pasted it in the script editor, and I ran it. And it didn't work.
No kidding.
So I went back and I said, hi, yeah, no, it fails like this. And they said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Hang on. What I think we should have done is done this. And then I take that back and I run that. And it also doesn't work. And
Yeah.
I come back. I'm like, okay, so what are you good for precisely? If I ask you something that has a very specific answer, and you can't deliver it, and I let you know that you can't deliver it, and you can't fix it on your own, then at a certain point, it comes down to, I have to take the problem, I have to describe it in such detail that I might as well be coding it myself.
Well,
Because
exactly.
if you can describe it to the level of detail that it would take to get this right, then you might as well fire up your code editor, because it's not that far off. Other than the syntax, it's the same level of thing.
Right. And I've done it with Python myself.
Okay.
And I get it when it comes, so I do, just to test, copy paste, right? I understand if it comes back and says you don't have this library.
Right.
But then I go look for the library, and that library does not exist.
Mm-hmm. There's no such thing.
There's no such thing.
Right.
It just thought, well, if this library existed, this is how you would write this program.
Right.
No.
So then I follow up with, show me the website where you think you learned this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it says, yeah, we don't do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, then you're,
Right.
full of junk. There's not much I can do.
Right.
If we can't agree on what reality looks like, then I think we
I
might be too far apart.
I asked it once to tell me about Nick Francesco.
Okay, I know that guy.
I have a lot of stuff out on the internet.
Yes.
A lot.
Right.
It came back and said I was vice president of the United States.
Wow.
And a whole bunch of things that I forgot. I'd forgotten them.
Mr. Vice President, I was not aware.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I expect hail to the chief every time I walk in.
Yes. No, the Secret
Boom,
Service
now
has
I-
been well concealed.
They're secret. It's in the name.
It's in the
Pay
name.
attention.
Come on, you guys.
So yeah, AI is not where people think. It's certainly not science fiction,
No.
right? Computer project the trajectory of that missile.
Right.
That would work.
Right.
'Cause
Or
that's just math that they already know.
tell me how to make the best martini.
Right. They can go look that up somewhere. Alaska
Uh-huh.
doesn't lie when she says, I looked this up. I found this on the internet.
Right.
Because that's how they all do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Or Apple does that. Siri does that.
Yes, Shlomo.
Shlomo does that. She looks up. She will say, yeah, it's not Alaska, it's Shlomo.
But I had this thought a few days ago regarding AI, because I've been thinking about it. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about it lately, and trying to get a sense of where are we actually. I mean, there's where the tech giants project this going, and then there's what's the reality on the ground for people, and then what are the tools available. I think these models can be specialized to work on certain kinds of problems and to aid in that. And they can be an excellent assistant for those kinds of things.
Right.
I think the general large language model tools that exist right now are great for general things, like help me structure this type of communication I want to have, or, hey, this jerk just sent me this email that has 1 million exclamation points in it. Can you summarize it for me and just tell me what he actually wants? Or things like that. I think it's very good at. I think the things that people are likely to want it for are not there yet and may not be there in the very near future. And all right, so that's all preamble to this statement. Do you remember the show Computer Chronicles?
Oh, sure.
With Stuart Chaffee that was on TV a million years ago, probably 40 years ago.
Yeah.
He was involved with that show because the personal computer market was very in its infancy, and the general public was not clear on A, what they were going to use a computer for at their house if they wanted to, but B, they're really expensive. How do I avoid making a wrong decision about what to buy? And I think right now with AI, we are kind of in that same mode where people know it's important, people know it's likely to be a big part of their future, but they're still not quite sure precisely what they're going to do with it or precisely what value it's going to provide to them. And they definitely don't want to make a mistake if they choose to get involved. And I think history is repeating itself to a point when it comes to this. So we need some new Stuart Chaffees to come and talk about what to pick for what and why.
I agree with you. The reality is that it's in its infancy, but we assume it's mature.
Right.
And that's where we run into trouble.
Yeah.
So we've seen there was the famous example of the woman, she's a scientist, and people were calling her up and asking her questions about something that's not anywhere near her field.
Mm-hmm.
And she got 5, 6, 8 phone calls about this.
Right.
She finally said, why are you calling me?
Yeah.
And they said, well, I just found a paper that you had written. I was reading a paper on this subject, and you are referenced as one of the authors.
Okay.
And that you had written multiple other papers in this field.
Okay.
No, I did not. No,
Sorry.
That's nowhere near my field.
Wasn't me, yeah.
I don't do that. She finally traced it back to one reference that an AI program created.
Oh, fun.
And other AI programs picked up on it.
Right.
Right.
And now it's all over the internet. She can't get rid of it.
That's a big challenge.
And that's the kind of thing that AI is doing.
Well, that's like the story, you tell a story around a campfire.
Yeah.
By the time it gets back to you, it's not even close to what you started.
Right. It's the game of telephone.
Well, and the disinformation seems to spread faster than truth, right?
Boy, ain't that the truth.
So
who was it who said lie can circle the globe before truth gets its pants on?
Yeah.
It might have been Mark Twain.
That sounds about right.
And before we go to the phones, did we mention that it's Microsoft's birthday yesterday?
Aww.
Microsoft is 50.
Wow.
50 years old. For those of us on Windows 3.1,
Yeah.
we're pretty old.
Yeah.
All right, to the phones. Our first caller is Andy from Greece, New York. What's up, Andy? Essentially, yeah. I mean, it does make connections between things, but that's okay. So one thing, right. So right, and we can. You're right. No, I
Yeah.
agree with you. The reality is that we do databases really well. We don't do connections really well. I mean, as computer scientists, as humans, we do. We make connections all the time that
Sure.
are more accurate than not. That's a survival trait. We bred out the bad deciders
Right.
a long time ago. So most of our decisions are good ones.
The people that want to pet lions. Yeah.
Exactly. There are very few these days, which is why we see them on the news. They're rare. You don't see a lot of news items of people petting cats.
True.
Because they do it all day.
Right.
But when it comes to making those decisions, making those connections, that's where AI is in its infancy. And you're right. We shouldn't be calling it intelligence. I'm not sure what the correct term is, but AI is the term that has stuck, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a set of tremendously organized and complex conditional statements, right? If this, then that. If you see this thing and it matches this, then do this other thing.
Yeah, it's
or make
basically a
this other
condition
decision.
tree, but
tremendously complex.
right.
But I think Andy's got a great point that what we name things and the words we use to describe things go well beyond the facts and reality and go into what people's imagination of that language represents. So when we use terms like intelligence, that has, as humans, that has a really strong connotation. But and marketers know this.
Yep.
That's literally their whole profession, is how do we elicit or how do we communicate this type of thing using language? And it's a challenge when you think about. I remember to the 90s. Do you remember the term fuzzy logic?
Oh yes.
So I'm not sure we hear much about that anymore, but it was the idea that instead of those comparisons you can do where this equals that, you could say, well, if this is sort of somewhat near that, then consider this other thing.
Well, and that's kind of what AI does too, right?
To a point.
The theory is it makes connections between things that aren't really connected.
It's a statistical table of
right.
a graph of relationships. Yes.
Right. And we just don't have that right yet.
And it's extra super fancy autocomplete, really, where it's on your phone when you type a word and it tries to suggest, oh, the next word in that text message you want to send might be one of these three.
What I don't understand is why it lies.
Well, great question. If it's solving it.
I would rather it says, I don't know. I would way rather it does that.
Well, the model is not sophisticated enough to recognize. It would rather go with the 10% correct likely answer than the 0% answer. Like, I imagine in the future, there's probably going to be a threshold where you can say, I only want responses that are this statistically significant. Maybe, and there probably already are, sliders that you can set for this type of thing.
Yes, and I would
I've
much rather it says this information is not in my data set, as opposed to I'm going to lie about this now.
Right. Well, a lot of the data sets stopped after, 2022 or something. So if you ask it who won the Super Bowl in 2023.
Right. Well, it depends which model
it may
what company and what model. But yeah, so, and of course, there's a lot of free stuff out there and a lot of paid stuff that the real researchers are using. But again, you can't use it to replace research. You can use it to guide your research.
It's an excellent assistant.
Right. But it is not going to replace your research. And you're not going to say to it, computer go out and get all the references to X. You can ask it to bring some stuff back, but not all of it is going to be real.
Right.
So you still have to do your research. All right, we got to take a break. Thanks, Andy. We're going to
Thanks,
take
Andy.
a quick break. Back in just a couple of minutes with Dave Enright, Dennis Worster, me, Nick Francesco, and you. It's 29 minutes after the hour. You're listening to the longest running computer show in the known universe. That would be Sound Bytes right here on member supported Jazz 90.1.
Computer talk on your skin. More Sound Bytes is next on member supported Jazz 90.1.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Carter.
Hey, there is news.
Yeah, now there's news.
Apple Watch displays wrong date until unlocked. That's what I had.
Oh, I think that's what I got that in the news somewhere.
Because it said 14 behind the 12 o'clock hand on my little complication for the date.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to say, why does it say, where did it get 14 from? All these people, they were talking about it last October when the new watchOS came out.
NBC News Radio.
I wonder if October 14th was the day I applied that update. Because I usually would have waited about a week.
What is who?
The watchOS update that came out last fall, it might have been October 14th when I applied it based on when it came out. And people are saying, oh, this shows the date that I updated until I unlocked the watch. Well, that's good.
Oh, there's an idea. applications too complex and hurts small companies that rely on advertising revenue. Apple has released security updates for the latest stable iOS, iPad OS, and Mac OS, addressing numerous security flaws. At the same time, it released security updates that backport fixes for actively exploited vulnerabilities that were exploited as 0 days in older versions of its operating systems running on older iPhones and Macs. This is unusual in the industry, and we applaud Apple for it. Apple recently released its highly anticipated iOS 18.4 update for iPhone users, which includes new emojis, AI goodies priority notification, and several changes to CarPlay. Unfortunately, those changes seem to be doing more harm than good for some, and we're seeing several complaints that CarPlay is nearly unusable for some people. The iOS 18.4 update was supposed to finally fix some major CarPlay problems, especially for EV owners. While it's great that this release had a huge breakthrough that made it so users can now have 3 rows of icons on the home screen, because that's the important part. It also released a bunch of connectivity issues and glitches to vehicle. The complaints are coming in from everywhere, and they're not limited to a specific brand of vehicle or stereo receiver. Users on Reddit are reporting CarPlay bugs in cars from Audi, Chevrolet, Mazda, Ford, Honda, VW, and others. The fix will likely require an update to the update. Apple Messages app got some big upgrades in iOS 18, but one of the biggest with the biggest potential impact, RCS support has had a slow rollout among some carriers. Fortunately, in iOS 18.4, Messages is bringing the feature to a lot of new users. So are you impacted by any of these? Oh, and then there's the phone, the watch, incorrect watch issue.
Right. Yeah. No, I looked that up, just trying to figure out what was I thinking, because I definitely saw it say something 14th of the month.
Yeah.
As I looked at my watch, as you were saying, no, it's today's date. It's the 5th. And turns out through Googling and being curious, I was able to find out that there is a bug that when your watch is locked, it shows the default date of when you applied the last watchOS update, which for me was October 14th.
Interesting.
So when I looked at it and said 14, which admittedly I was not entirely keeping track of what day it is anyway,
Right.
quite apparently. And then when I unlocked it, it went back and said the 5th. So yeah, turns out I got bit by a bug, but just in a very public forum.
Yeah. Well, how about you? Have you been bitten by any of these issues? Give us a call, 585-966-JAZZ. That's 966-5299. Toll free 800-790-0415. But before you do that, please, we are in a pledge drive. Twice a year, we come to you for help. As I've said many times, we get no federal support. We get no state support. All our money comes from you. When we say member supported, we ain't kidding. Do I have 2 sheets of paper or just one? I just have one. Okay.
Oh.
So please
pledge so Nick can get more paper.
I need more paper. We need your help. The reality is, you've seen changes in this station over the last year, and that's because we did not raise enough money. More changes will be coming if we don't raise enough this time. So please, if you like what you hear, even if it's just this show, even if all you do is tune in once a week, what are we worth to you on a weekly basis? Are we worth $2 a week?
Yeah.
$3 a week? $4 a week? That'll tell you what level you can pledge at on a yearly basis. And do not forget, we also have Pledge-O-Matic.
That's true.
Where once every month we take an X amount out of your checking account. You decide the amount, and we only do it with your approval. You don't just randomly reach it. Could we do that? That would
save so much time.
Let's ask AI.
Yeah.
Anyway, the thing is, once a month, we then for a year take out from your checking account the amount you have donated.
Agreed to, yes.
So let's say you decide to do $5 a month. That's $60 a year.
Yep.
Well, the minimum is $10 a month.
Okay.
Because of fees and all the other nonsense.
That's what makes it make sense for us. Yeah.
Right. So it's $120 a year.
Okay.
But $10 a month is a lot less than $120 in a Byte.
Right. And that's only what, $250 a week.
It's only a couple of bucks a week. So please head on over to jazz901.org hit that great big donate, it's red, the big red donate now button, and donate. And for those of you who are listening during the week, the pledge drive is still on.
Yeah.
We need you to donate. We need your help, and we need it right now.
That's true.
So stop whatever you're doing. You're carrying a phone with you. Take 2 minutes out of your life, and literally 2 minutes, and join the family. Become a member of the Jazz 90.1 family. More importantly, become a member of the Soundbites family. And it's real easy, jazz901.org, in order to do that. It's simple, it's fast, it's easy. And Lord knows I like fast and easy.
Yeah.
Because it works for me.
And the other thing, and all of you folks that are out there listening, the countless times that folks have called in and said, you know what, really appreciate you guys being there and helping me out. Solve this problem or help me with this one.
Right.
And saved me a lot of money. And again, we're not looking for a lot of money, just even a few bucks. There is no wrong amount to give because it just adds up and gets us to our goal.
That's right.
Which is modest by today's standards and what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
The little bit that we need to stay on the air and give you this free information.
That's right.
We don't get paid.
What?
Yeah. Still 33 years later, we're still begging for money and we haven't seen a penny. And you know what? That's okay. We enjoy doing what we do. That's why we give up our Saturdays. Think about it, folks. Well, you folks are just literally getting up, on a Saturday to go shopping or do this or do that.
Throughout your day.
We're getting up, saying goodbye to our families. For me, it's like, all right, I usually leave the house around 11 o'clock. I got to get ready before that. And I don't get back home until around 3, 2:30, 3 o'clock, depending on traffic and what else I might have to do. So there's most of Saturdays shop. As far as doing a lot of stuff or activities outside and everything else.
This is a choice. This is the choice that you've made to
And
do the thing you want to do.
And I've made that choice just like Nick for the past 33 years, giving up my Saturdays to come here, not getting paid, but to give you folks computer advice. So please, like you said, just pick up your phone, go to that website while you're listening to the show and make a pledge. There is no wrong amount.
And it only takes a couple of minutes.
Right.
We've had very, very large pledges, and we've had very, very small pledges, and we appreciate all of them. There's no point at which we look at a small pledge and turn up our noses. We are grateful.
Yeah.
Because
no
not
matter what the
everybody
size.
can afford a lot.
No, that's true. And the thing is, to get the access to 3 people who have a significant level of knowledge in this industry, and to get it for $10 a month is an incredible bargain, really, if you think about it. If you don't think so, try and hire a consultant and tell me what they charge. And I guarantee it's not going to be $10 a month.
Right.
Or whatever amount you choose to give. But the value that we provide versus the amount that you could supply is a tremendous bargain.
Yeah, because that's the one key thing here. We don't ask, well, how much did you give? The only thing we ask is, you're a member or a non-member. That's the only thing. There's no dollar amount attached to that whatsoever. We don't care about that.
Right.
All we care about is and we love it when folks say, yeah, I'm a member.
Yeah. Be sure and tell us when you call.
It doesn't matter the dollar amount. You care about the show and you're donating. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, for sure.
So please head on over to jazz901.org. Hit that big red donate now button. Fill out the form. There's a section in there that says this donation goes to Soundbites. Make sure you click on that one. Check that box, and we're on our way. Yeah. And so where else are you going to get this kind of information? You may have been looking at your Apple Watch and thinking,
that's not right.
That's not right.
Let's call the guys.
Not knowing what to do about it. Dennis is giving you the answer.
Yep, it's true.
And
I'll tell you one thing. In my career so far, I think the number one thing when I interact with people, when I interact with coworkers, when I interact with clients I've had over the years, the number one thing that I'm good at compared to those people is I am very good at Googling things.
Oh, it's Google Fu. It's like Kung Fu only for Google.
I've developed a skill. I've developed the ability to look at the results, realize when it needs to be refined. You know, it's all these things that AI can't quite do yet.
Right.
This is the value that I provide. So I can, during literally the break while y'all were listening to consumer tips and thoughts about where to shop and what to buy and news and weather, I was looking for these things, and I can usually find those answers pretty fast. And you have access to my capabilities when you call this show. So, yeah. And my esteemed co-hosts here are also similarly knowledgeable and have experience and understand not just what are the answers for the things today, but how does that relate to the situation as a whole, or how things have progressed over time, and what can we do to figure out if this makes sense to try now, or what makes sense in terms of I've got a computer it's 4 years old. Should I consider replacing it? Or I'm considering getting into this new hobby. What things should I consider? You have access to a team, a secret team of advisors. Well, not so secret. We're on the radio for goodness sake.
Yeah.
But you have access to us, literally a phone call away, once a week, that you can ask nearly anything you want, and we'll do our best.
And it used to be that we were all computers.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And in the beginning, we were all PC.
Yes.
Then Macs came along.
Yep.
On the show.
Right.
And now we do Linux, we do Chromebooks, we do phones, we do a ham radio.
Yeah.
We'll do, and when Steve is here, we'll do airplanes.
Sure. Raspberry Pi.
Airplanes. We do Raspberry Pis. I mean, all of
consumer
this
electronics.
Consumer electronics in general. And it's not just, can you answer a question about my phone? It's, can you relate how that answer and my computer interact?
Yes.
Because often the problem is not the device, the problem is the interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we can do that for you. We can help you with that. But we can't do that if we're not on the air. And I'm being honest. The only way we stay on the air is if you make that pledge. Head on over to jazz901.org and make that pledge now. Our goal this drive is $70,000.
Okay.
We're only at 23,000.
Okay.
That's a third of the
about
way.
a third. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we would prefer to be halfway done.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do with these pledge drives is when we hit our goal, we are done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if somebody donated $70,000,
mm-hmm.
and we are open to that,
sure,
the pledge drive would end.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to hear us begging next week, because I hear that all the time, I don't listen when you guys beg, then pledge, and the begging stops early.
Gets us off the air much faster as far as the topic that we have to talk about.
That's exactly right.
I mean, it's just bottom line, you got to have the money to stay on the air.
And it is not impossible, and I know everybody scoffs when I say this, it is not impossible that this show could go away. It is very possible. There are programs that could come in to replace us that would actually bring money into the station.
Yeah, and then people will be saying, "Hey, remember Soundbytes?
Remember Soundbytes?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to Soundbytes? What happened is you didn't pledge."
All right.
That's
the truth.
There we have.
Yep.
So make that pledge. Head on over to jazz901.org. Hit that big red donate now button. Make the pledge. It's not that difficult. And believe me when I tell you, you'll find that it's quick. It's quick. It's easy. It takes a couple of minutes. That's all. You can do it while your coffee's percolating.
So what's going on with
Who
Google?
percolates coffee anymore when your coffee is dripping?
Yes. So what's going on with Google these days?
Oh, Google. Well, we could read a second news segment, which leaves us short, by the way. So I will hold the news for Google. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about Apple.
Okay.
there is that 1804 update and
18.4, yes.
18.4 update, and what every news item I saw touted that there are 8 new emojis.
New emoji, right? Yes.
And again, plural of emoji is emoji. I get that. And I actually understand that.
Okay.
Because when a device, this is not just iPhones, but all of these phones and computers and everything else, when they already do everything you want them to do,
right,
and they do it pretty well,
how do you
what's left is, hey, look, we have 8 new emoji.
Right. How does Apple put a carrot in front of you to want you to fetch the new update, right?
Exactly. And I joke about it, I make fun of it, I mock it, I admit that. But the reason it's happening is because they're already so darn good that you don't, what are you going to say?
Right.
That's the whole thing behind AI. What don't I have in my phone? AI.
True.
So let's get AI in my phone.
Right.
And so I understand that that's why it's done, but it does make me laugh every time. We have 8 new emoji. We have Apple did it. Google did it. We have the your mic is on. They didn't. So stay on. They went to material, the material design, and the icons got round instead of square.
Right.
It was a huge deal. It was a huge deal.
People lost their mind.
People lost their minds, and the reason is, of course, because it already does everything.
Right. This is the level that we have to worry about, right?
Right. When what we're worried about is round versus square or 8 new emoji,
Yeah.
our devices work pretty doggone well.
Remember when the iPhone first came out and people complained that it just simply wouldn't complete a phone call?
Exactly. We've moved just a little bit farther along with that.
Oh my goodness.
So you've got to realize that we joke about this stuff. Oh, 8 new emoji. But the reality is that it's only because they're so doggone good. All right, back to the phones. Our next caller is Steve from Mendon, New York. What's up, Steve?
Okay.
Sure.
Musical instrument device interface for our listeners.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
All right, let's back up. Let's back up a couple of steps. Which version of Windows? Okay.
Good.
That's good.
And can you tell us what instrument it is? Okay. Wow.
Nice.
There is a MIDI bagpipe? See, this is why I come to this show. On no other show will you learn about Scottish bagpipes that are electronic. Fantastic. Thank you so much for telling me about this. I had no idea.
You know what? I'm going to Google a minute. I get home after the show.
I'm going to be YouTube videoing this afternoon.
Oh, it's going to be a whole afternoon.
All right. Okay. Let's get into this.
So now, how are you connecting it to Windows 11?
Okay. Okay, good.
Right.
Okay. I remember Cakewalk from years and years and years ago. Okay. Okay. So almost half a second. All right.
All right, so yeah, all right. So let's start with the USB you're connecting with. Is it USB 2 or 3?
Okay.
Okay,
That should be
that was the wrong
plenty.
answer.
Yeah.
A real simple answer for you.
No, MIDI has been around forever, and in the olden days, in the 80s, it was done through a set of serial cables, and the amount of information that's coming across MIDI is actually pretty small. It's what key is being pressed with what velocity, and so forth. It's the data itself just is pretty bare bones. So USB 3 is plenty for that.
So
Hmm.
what do you know what sound card you have?
Okay,
Ah,
got it.
okay. So my thought is the problem is the sound card. It's just not doesn't have enough oomph
Well, maybe.
to do the job. If you could,
How much memory in the machine?
Okay,
yeah, that should be
considerable.
enough. I gotta go with the sound card. I think it's just got not enough oomph to
There,
do the.
no, that happens. Well, whew, the application where the virtual instruments live, the sounds that the virtual instruments make, those live within the application, usually in a set of libraries, and you can usually use a digital audio workstation computer, and you can load different versions of, you can play the bagpipe and have it come out as a guitar, or you can play the bagpipe and have it come out as a piano. And the conversion from which holes are you covering in your bagpipe to what does the sound that comes out of the speaker, that conversion happens in the audio software itself. It takes the information in from which if you'll pardon me, which key is being pressed and how hard was it pressed, and it converts that into, all right, that means play this sound at this velocity at this volume out. That occurs before the sound card is converting that into something to play out the speakers. So one thing that comes to mind is that there are interfaces that you can use to connect, and I'll continue to do some research on this during the break.
Yeah, don't hang up, please. It's going to be a fairly longish break, but don't hang up, and we'll come back to you and talk more about this on the other side of the break. But we are now going to take a short break. We will be back in just a couple of minutes with Dave Enright, Dennis Worcester, Steve from Mendon, me, Nick Francesco, and you. It is 59 minutes after the hour. You are listening to the longest running computer show in the known universe, Sound Bytes. We're in a pledge drive, so this is the perfect time for you to head on over to your computer, go to jazz901.org, hit that big red donate now button, and make your donation before we even come back. It's fast, it's lightning quick, it's easy, it's convenient, and we will see you in just a couple of minutes on the longest running computer show in the known universe, Sound Bytes. Yeah. Okay.
You'd think a guy that does tech at a music school would know more about MIDI.
Could you do me a huge favor so that I don't hit the wall?
Water?
Fill that up at the bubbler, the water fountain.
Yep. That's a very Northeast term, the bubbler.
The bubbler, yeah.
Keep checking. We're not getting any updates from Rob because he's on his plane on his way to Vegas, I think it is.
Oh, nice.
California for some somebody, please hold.
News Radio, severe storms are expected to bring more tornadoes and catastrophic flooding to the central U.S. The National Weather Service says the greatest threat for flood and tornadoes will be in Arkansas, Missouri, and Texas. Rylan Mosley said he had seconds to escape.
This is out of the water cooler. Is that what you meant?
Pardon?
Out of the water cooler?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You got it. What's going on? How do I figure this out?
On Friday, had invited Netanyahu for discussions. Netanyahu's visit could mark the first attempt by a foreign leader to try to negotiate a deal on tariffs. The talks also will likely include Israel's war in Gaza. Lisa Garten, NBC News Radio.
Sure. Sure. All right. That's not a bad thought at all. I will think about that and put it together. Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred. Perfect. You are a gentleman and a scholar, sir.
We appreciate that very much.
Love you back, Fred. Thanks.
Great
Thanks.
job.
That's what we like to hear. Somebody who made a donation.
Yeah, for sure.
I will take a look at that. I'm sure there are other books out there, but like you said, the problem, like Fred said, the problem with a lot of these is they're very convoluted.
Yeah.
You know, they assume a level of knowledge that you don't already have.
Right. Right.
And I guess if you're willing to slog your way through it,
Okay, Pittsburgh.
you gain that knowledge.
Right. And one of the challenges when you write these kinds of things is everybody comes at the desire to learn this from a different point of view, from a different perspective with different goals. And to write something that's general enough to apply to most people is difficult.
Yep.
But so it often helps to try and find out. You might have different flavors of the same type of book. You might say this one is for people who need to process a lot of text, or people who want to install a GPT LLM on their local machine and not have to use the internet.
We're talking about people who just want to get a directory listing.
Or get a directory listing and understand what the results look like.
And that's the other thing. How do you organize this?
Yeah.
You organize it by here's the most basic knowledge. And now that you have that, we can build on it in the next section.
Right.
And that's really, I think,
Baby
the way to do
steps.
it. Yeah, baby steps.
So yeah, you run the date command to see the current date and time.
Right.
And the concept of typing something in and hitting return and getting a result, right? You start with that.
Right.
And you
So,
kind of build from that.
because you look at a lot of them, they start with, okay, let's create a cron job.
Yeah.
Well, whoa. We need to back up about 300 steps.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, all right. Back to the phones. Our next caller is Jerome from Pittsburgh, New York. What's up, Jerome?
Jeremy.
Okay. Yes, please. Okay. All right. Reducing latency. Go to audioproductionroom.com. And they talk about reducing latency. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep. Makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. Right. Yeah. So 10.6 was when Apple started shifting to the Intel infrastructure, and that was the last time they were probably right. Short answer, I'm not sure. I'd say it's unlikely, but I won't say it's impossible. I would say that the computers, especially the Apple Silicon stuff these days, is probably powerful enough to emulate it. PPC emulation.
Did you say Linux at some point?
something like QEMU.
Yeah, there's a thing called Pear PC. There's another one called Mac on Linux. There's one called Basilisk 2. I've not used any of these. I don't know anything about them, but they are emulator software. Theoretically can run many PowerPC operating systems, actually.
Well, here's a website that says how to emulate PowerPC or PPC32 Linux in, well, all right. So they're taking a version of Linux that was running on PowerPC and then running it on x86 64. That's close, but it's not. I presume it's an old Mac OS game. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
QEMU.
There it is. QEMU. Yeah, QEMU. However you pronounce that. That also runs under Linux and can run. It is a PowerPC system emulator. Now, generally speaking, these things create a PowerPC environment. So you would then run an old version of Mac OS, the PowerPC version of Mac OS on them, and then run the game in that. They are not an emulator for
the app itself.
Mac OS.
Right.
They're an emulator for the PowerPC architecture, so you could run a Mac OS operating system, the PPC version of Mac OS on that. Right.
Likely.
So you would boot the emulator, you would then load up Tiger, for example, and then you would load up your game. So give it enough RAM and enough processing power to do all of that.
There is a website that might help. It's called Macintosh Garden. And they had older discussions of PowerPC games and even Motorola 68000 games that may be helpful, and they may have forums or other things that would allow you to look at things like that. There's another one called MacintoshrEpository.org that may have details about how to run things. But QEMU appears to be, or Sheepshaver appears to be the current tool to use in Linux that may allow you to emulate PowerPC architecture. And then, like we said, you'll probably have to go find a version of 10.6 or something earlier that will let you play this. And at that point, we have to balance, like, how much effort do you want to put into this? It may be just as easy to try and track down original hardware and try and run it on the original hardware.
Right.
All right. Thanks for your help. Thanks for calling, Jerome.
Yeah, it does look like Sheepshaver is actually the.
I've used Sheepshaver on recent Macs to emulate old Macs enough to play the games.
Which is what he's trying to do.
And it works. There was an old game, again, from the 90s that was based on Star Trek The Next Generation, but it was written by just some guy.
Sure.
And he borrowed, shapes of the Enterprise and shapes of other Romulan and Ferengi and other things, and made a really cool game where you had to take your Enterprise, go warp speed over to planets and rescue people that needed to get off the planets before the enemies came and destroyed the planets. And you had to optimize things, and sometimes you'd end up in battles against the other ships themselves. And it was a lot of fun, but trying to find the several hoops you have to jump through, the nested hoops, to try and make your current computer pretend to be a computer from 30 years ago, turned out to be not enough. The game wasn't fun enough to justify all that effort. So it was a lot easier to track down the original hardware, keep it on my shelf in the basement, and when I feel like playing it, fire it up and play for a few hours and then get rid of it and put it back in the basement. So it probably can be done, but it's just a matter of with what amount of effort.
there's a website called ppc.real.
Okay.
No, there's a ppc.real. PPC Real Online is the thing you look up and it takes you to a website.
Okay.
And it seems to run a PowerPC on your. Again, I know nothing
Right.
about it. It could be
Yeah, there's also
riddled with.
there are some
That
browser-based emulators that attempt to emulate original Mac OS in a browser, which work to a degree. I think getting those to work with certain pieces of software can be tricky. The emulation game and the old school gaming gets trickier every year. Sometimes the tools make a significant jump and you end up with, oh, I can run this in my browser. Right. Yeah. Infinite Macintosh.
No, that's from infinitemac.org. Yeah.
It's so sometimes there are these leaps that are made that become really impressive. But just the old school way of installing an emulator, then finding an OS. Oh, now you've got to find a disk image of that. Oh, it needs to be in the ISO format, not in the DMG format. And then, okay, but this PPC was big endian and PowerPC and Intel is not. And it was.
If it's not one hoop, it's another.
You can get through it, but it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint.
Yep. Yeah, and you're right. It's often easy. One of the interesting things is that there's a whole community of people who use Raspberry Pis
Okay.
to emulate older Windows machines.
Yeah.
So they can run old Windows games.
Okay.
And old Steam games and a
Sure.
couple of other things. But I haven't seen that same community for Mac games.
Right. I've seen it for old arcade games.
Right.
So Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Frogger, Dig Dug, that kind of thing.
Right.
That's very common. But yeah, trying to run specialized hardware from 30 years ago to run a niche of a niche of a niche gets trickier because there are fewer other people who are also attempting the same thing to draw upon as resources.
Right.
So it's doable, but man, that's a mountain to climb.
Yep. I was tempted this week to load Doom
Okay.
onto my new computer because I've got a hardware accelerated graphics card.
Okay.
So it would be very sexy.
Yes.
Also probably so fast I couldn't deal with it.
Right. It would just be a blur.
That would be kind of interesting.
Oh man.
Just to give it a shot.
Right. See what happens. You can run it on everything else.
Right. Exactly right. But yeah, there's whole communities showing you how to run games on Raspberry Pis because Raspberry Pis are inexpensive.
Yeah.
You can buy them pretty inexpensively. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but we will be back in just a couple of minutes with Dave Enright, Dennis Worcester, me, Nick Francesco, and you. What a perfect time to head on over to jazz901.org and hit that big red donate now button and make that pledge. While you do that, we'll be right here waiting to come back in just a couple of minutes. We'll race you back on Jazz 90.1.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Carter. Thousands are expected to take part in an anti-Trump protest in Washington, D.C. today. Organizers say about
Your
10,000 are
speakers.
expected for a rally at the Washington Monument that begins at noon Eastern. The protest is part of a nationwide day of action against the Trump administration, organized by a group called Hands Off 2025. Security fencing went up around the White House ahead of today's protest. Federal prosecutors are asking for a 7-year prison sentence for disgraced former Congressman George Santos. The New York Republican falsified his education and work background before his surprise.
Are people saying they can hear the?
Yeah, I'm checking that out now. Mute. Set your mic input.
Guilty last August to charges of wire fraud and identity theft. Prosecutors want Santos to pay back over $500,000 in fines. Lisa Carter, NBC News Radio.
possible that they're not hearing either of us except through our computers?
It's possible. All right. I've adjusted the audio device. I'm going back to Steve's instructions. Set your mic input to this. You may need to adjust the computer's input level. Mute your speakers. Click the thumbnail to add yourself. Have Nick join the screen. Nick should mute both mic and speakers in his StreamYard. Cover his thumbnail. Oh, click his thumbnail to add this. Click go live. All right.
Yeah, because I'm not muted right now.
All right. So if I mute you,
Month, the great jazz musicians all found their own sound. They didn't want to sound like anyone else. They wanted to sound like themselves. To learn more about the jazz masters, read a book, check out a CD, or listen to jazz programming on radio. Jazz, born in America, enjoyed worldwide. For further information, visit smithsonianjazz.org.
Jazz 90.1 weather.
We'll look for areas of rain today across Rochester, New York, and the Finger Lakes, and it will be on the warm side, with temperatures ranging from the upper 50s close to the Lake Ontario shoreline to the low 60s inland. And we should find a busy breeze coming in out of the southeast. Look for additional periods of rain for your Saturday night. Overnight lows will be into the mid-30s. Mostly cloudy with scattered showers for Sunday. Cooler, highs near 40. I'm meteorologist Josh Nichols for Jazz 90.1.
And currently right now we've got partly cloudy skies, 60 degrees out at the airport and 61 here at member-supported Jazz 90.1.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Nick Francesco.
I'm Dave Enright.
and I'm Dennis Worster.
And at 33 minutes after the hour, the people in the YouTube stream can actually hear us now.
Yay.
So it's very exciting.
Yes. You know, one of these days I'm going to have to come to rehearsal and get all this stuff figured out.
Look, if you don't show up for rehearsal, you're sitting in your 57 Chevy,
Yeah. Yeah. Taking a draw on my Pall Mall.
taking a draw on the Pall Malls, just and a bottle of Jack Daniel's Red,
No,
and
but
just
it's entirely my fault because Steve Ray, the glorious Steve Ray, did indeed
Amazing
give me
Steve.
an enumerated list of things to do and in what order. And, you know, it really helps if you read the instructions
and then follow them.
and then follow them, and you get tremendously more successful results. So, yes, read the directions, kids. Listen to your parents
RTFM.
and
Right.
read the directions.
Right. RTFM, read the manual first.
Read the fine manual.
Read that fabulous manual.
Right. All right. Do we want to know about miscellaneous news or Google News?
Google.
Surprise me.
Okay, Google it is. Some Google Pixel users have found that the at-a-glance widget that has been showing outdated weather forecasts, but Google said in a statement that it's addressing the issue. Apparently, the current temperature is fairly accurate, but the
Okay.
expected high-low forecast hasn't been correct in the past week.
Oh, no.
You should talk.
I got my own problem.
You got your own problems.
It's been one of those days, man.
The locks.
14th.
Who's talking to me?
Say again.
Oh, my phone is talking to me for some reason.
Are you there, God? It's me, Nick.
The lock screen shows the weather for the current location, but in the morning it shows yesterday's forecast as the temperature today in the evening.
Okay.
In the evening, it shows today's forecast as the weather tomorrow. Google released its latest and greatest Gemini AI model last week, speaking of AI, but it was only made available by paying to paying subscribers. Google then moved with uncharacteristic speed to release Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental for free users too. The next time you check in with Gemini, you can access most of the new AI's features without a Gemini Advanced subscription. This isn't a Gemini 2.5 free-for-all. Google still wants to sell people on paid Gemini subscriptions, so you can only use the new model with rate limits. Again, Google has not clearly described the limits. You won't know where you stand until Gemini shuts you down for exceeding the limit.
Ugh.
Of course, if you're one of the majority who doesn't trust AI, you won't be using this anyway. Acer just introduced new Chromebooks aimed at the education market at BETT 2025.
Okay.
Mostly this was standard fare, but there's one little addition to Acer's latest offering that's quite interesting this time around in the form of a tablet, the Acer Chromebook Tab 311. It has a 10.95-inch display, not 11 inches.
Oh no. What are you supposed to do?
Exactly. You can add a keyboard,
Okay.
kickstand, and a garaged USI stylus. That's the Universal Stylus Initiative,
Oh,
USI. It'll be available in North America in Q2. Would you buy a Chromebook, a Chrome OS tablet? Why or why not? Give us a call, 585-966-JAZZ. It's 966-5299, toll free 800-790-0415.
right. Well, to borrow, there's a technology author, Andy Inako, that I've been following for decades, and he puts it really well when he says, when he's considering a new purchase or a new technology, he says he wants to have technology that either creates an opportunity or solves a problem. And I'm trying to figure out what opportunities would a tablet like that create.
Well, it solves a problem.
Okay.
Which is you have a lightweight, inexpensive device to take around instead of your big, heavy,
Sure.
everyday machine.
Right.
Also, if it gets lost or stolen, you're out at a lot less of a problem.
Fewer dollars. Yeah.
Well, not only fewer dollars, but all your stuff is on your main machine.
Because it's on, yeah.
Right?
Right.
And I know a lot of students who have a large laptop or a desktop in their dorm room,
Yeah.
and take a Chromebook to class.
Hmm.
Because all you're doing is taking notes,
Mm-hmm.
or sitting in the back
True.
watching Facebook or playing a game online.
And I still think there's a lot to be said for taking notes by putting a pen to paper. I think the ability to draw out diagrams, to put arrows and boxes, and to do things that are just not as easy to do when you've got an insertion point that you're pushing to the right as you type things.
Yep.
That there's still a lot of value in that, and that gets lost, I think, when you're just taking notes into a text doc.
Yep. Back in the day, when I could type 120 words a minute,
Mm-hmm.
before the arthritis set in,
Right.
I did almost all of my stuff for a long time in typing.
Okay.
Then I found Journal X. It's journal with an X instead of a J.
Okay.
And it was a tablet thing that let you, it's now Journal Plus Plus.
I see.
And it let you do drawing on the screen, taking handwritten notes. I believe, and I could be conflating this with something else, but I believe
Open
it then
source.
it would then turn it into text,
Oh, okay. Do handwriting
handwriting
recognition.
recognition. And it just did everything. And I used Journal for 150 years. I fell in love with it. I used it for everything. But now at the moment, I don't have a tablet
Right.
that I'm using, so I don't have Journal.
Journal, okay, according to Wikipedia, Journal is an open source tool for annotating PDF files. It supports pen, mouse, and keyboard input. It and the related Journal++ are commonly used for adding annotations and electronic signatures to PDF files.
Right, that's how I
especially on
originally
Linux.
got it. That's how I originally got it.
But if your PDF was a sheet of lined paper,
And that's exactly right.
and you started writing on top of it, then you could certainly do
And
that.
that is exactly right. And I took notes for years on that.
Interesting.
All right, back to the phones. Our next caller is James from Rochester, New York. What's up, James?
Oh, hi, Nick.
Hi.
I got a question for you guys about Twitter or X.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that a long time ago, well, like about a year ago, I used to get all my posts there from the people that I'm following.
Right.
If they change, because I get all these, what do you call them, messages or tweets on my thing of all the people that I am not following anymore. They just throw things at me, like school kids fighting or whatever.
Well, it's two things going on there, James. One is the algorithm has changed, so you'd see fewer of the people you followed. The other thing is that it's possible that many of the people you followed have left X.
Yeah, maybe.
Look, that gets into politics and Elon Musk and all of that. But the reality is that a huge number of very popular Twitter people, when it turned into X, left it and went generally to Blue Sky, but also to a couple of others. Now, what that leads us to is a little self-promotion. Wednesday night at 7 p.m., I will be giving a talk on Twitter alternatives at the Apple Cider meeting.
Fabulous.
And it's going to be online.
Okay.
So you don't even have to put on pants.
Okay.
Applecider.org, I'm sure, will tell you where to go and how to find it.
Applecider.org will have the link to the Google Meet.
Okay.
But about your specific question, the other thing that X did about a year ago, well, probably a little more, because they wanted to do a similar thing to what TikTok was doing, they have a default feed that's called the For You feed. And that is the one that you see when you first start up the app. And it's much like you were describing. It is a little bit of people you actually subscribe to that you're following, but it's also a whole bunch of ads and other places based on things that X thinks you might like. And probably X doesn't know you as well as they think they do. So what I can recommend is at the top of the X application, there's the I'm showing this to Nick here. There's the For You feed, and then there's also the Following feed. And if you tap over to the Following feed, then you get the list of the results from all the people that you've actually chosen to follow. The problem is that X, every time you start it up, doesn't just give you the Following feed, which is what you and I would really prefer, but they kick you back over to the For You feed. And that's
so you have to select it each time.
You have to select it each time, and it's
well, it's just
but
one
it is there.
Then.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because they put a lot of garbage.
Oh yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. So
the
click
goal
on
there
over
is
to the
just to-
Following feed, and you'll be good.
Right.
Yeah,
The goal is just to keep you
question
scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
How about, like, are they trying to get money, like pay to get it back to, or I don't need to pay anything?
They do have a X Premium site that allows you to get verified, and you can get paid to post if you've got enough followers, and you get the additional. They don't interrupt the videos that you're watching with ads, and that's $10 a month or so. The I don't know if that gives you the ability to show a default of your own following. But it's,
well, I just clicked on what you just said, the For You and the Following, and that's much better.
Okay, good.
They've been throwing like all garbage on there.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a lot of everything on X, and so you're going to get a lot of garbage in with the good stuff too. But if you stick with who you're following, you'll be better off.
Yeah, are they selling that? Selling X?
It doesn't seem to be so far. The board of directors of X are very upset with Elon Musk that he's essentially abandoned the company, but we'll see what happens in the future. Right now, there doesn't seem to be any movement to sell.
Yeah, does Dorsey have anything to do with it anymore?
No, not anymore. He went and started Blue Sky, so he's gone from there.
Well, thank you very much. That's a big help because it was driving me crazy. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thanks
Have
for
fun.
calling.
Bye bye.
All right, we'll see you
Bye-bye.
next time.
That's us. We're here to help you. We're here to make your life easier. We're here to simplify what you do and see and play with.
Yep.
So
And get rid of the crud and get back to the love.
get back, get rid of the crud, get back to the love. I like it. So you can help us by giving us a little love and no crud by heading on over to jazz901.org. Click on that big red donate now button and make your donation, make your pledge. And again, let me remind you that this coming Wednesday, I will be giving a talk at Apple Cider on Twitter or X if you prefer alternatives. And the way to join is to just head on over to applecider.org, CIDER, apple cider like the drink, .org, and you will see a Google Meet link that you can just click on Wednesday night at 7:00.
Mhm.
And I will be giving that talk. I've been writing it for much of the week.
Okay.
And I don't want to give it all away, but
Right.
I'm going to
Well,
talk about three major alternatives.
There are, it used to be easy because Twitter was kind of the only game in town. And if you wanted to be on a microblogging service, or if you wanted to hear what others had to say, that was the place to go. And it was easy to join. It was easy to see what you wanted. And in general, everything kind of got out of your way.
Yep.
But now this environment has become fragmented.
Yep.
So it's there are alternatives, people that really wanted to come up with ways to moderate things so that the speech was appropriate for certain audiences, and different ideas about how to do that. And I think we're seeing that in different models and different communities. So
I was counting up
very
the
interesting.
Twitter alternatives that exist.
Yeah.
I stopped counting at like 26.
Okay.
Right. I mean, so there is a certain amount of fragmentation.
For sure.
And, there's one that many of the people I used to follow have gone over to. There's another one where I get much more engagement than the others.
Right.
So, you're on multiple ones now.
Right.
For various reasons. So
the things that I notice are, and I don't remember if this is Blue Sky or if it's Threads or somewhere else. I noticed that, and maybe I'm just not following enough people. There are posts that come up that all end in question marks. It's like, hey, what was your favorite band to listen to in high school?
all this
stuff. And it's like sort of like
that's
manufactured.
on Threads. I don't really follow Threads anymore.
And people respond to it and talk about it, and then it starts a conversation. But it's all these sort of conversation starter threads that I'm pretty sure were bots.
Yep, exactly right. I don't spend much time on Threads. I'm active on Blue Sky and Counter Social and Mastodon.
Right.
But not so much.
They're trying to get conversations started, trying to get people comfortable being there and experience happy feelings when they're there.
And that's legitimate. I get that.
Oh, for sure.
I do. I get that. But it's not.
But that's sort of like, that's the alternative to like having a blank screen, just because nobody's said anything. So there's nothing to say.
Right. and to me, it smells of desperation.
A little bit.
A
little bit.
There's nobody on here.
A bit inauthentic. Yeah.
Right. Whereas I see lots of people on Blue Sky. I see lots of people on Counter Social. I see lots of people on Mastodon.
Yeah.
So I don't need to follow Threads. I certainly don't follow X anymore. But we'll talk about all of that on Wednesday. I'm not going to give you enough to make you not come on Wednesday. You'll be sitting in your own home with a Google Meet. You don't even have to put pants on. God knows I won't.
Won't cost you a dime either.
And it won't cost you a dime. So join us Wednesday night. It's an Apple Cider meeting. Yes, they'll talk about some Apple stuff. Hold your nose. We'll get past it and talk about the various alternatives to various things. And you know what? Even if you hang out with the Apple folks waiting for me to talk, you'll learn some stuff. And you might find that Macs aren't quite as nasty as you thought they were.
Oh, come on.
Well, I'm trying to be polite. They're hosting me. I'm trying to be polite.
Yes. Don't bite the hand and such.
Yeah. Be nice to your audience. Exactly.
Well, you can tell them about Zernal, and there is a Mac OS installation for that.
Yep.
Which makes me wonder if it'll run on an iPad.
I don't know. If there's an iOS installation, it will.
I'll have to play with that later today.
Yeah, I really do like Zernal a lot. It's very fast and it's very convenient.
Interesting.
And I ran it for many. I've still got 100, 1,500 journal files
Okay.
that I'm just not looking at because I don't do that anymore.
Right.
You know, I used to take all my meeting notes in Journal.
So switching gears, one of the things I'm trying to get into is automating my house. Specifically, I want to be able to, when I'm headed to the bedroom to go to bed at night, I want to be able to tell the house to just, close up shop. I want it to check and see if the garage door is open. And if it is, I want it to close it. If the garage light is on, I want it to turn the light off. I want to make sure all the basement lights are turned off. Just all the stuff that I might not have thought of. I just wanted to get all shut down. And so that's one of the things I'm looking at now. I've got a garage door opener that has the capability to do this, but I've not integrated it into my environment. And I do have Alaska at home, at least for now. Of course, they've got news where Amazon has got a new service. Apparently.
Amazon the Alaska Plus.
Okay.
And here's a surprise. Are you sitting down?
Okay.
It's AI.
What?
Unbelievable.
Still?
Yeah. More AI. You don't have enough AI in your AI, so here's some AI.
Yeah. Squirt that in your eye.
Right. So yeah, that's rolling out to people right now. I don't see in any of the announcements where you have to have a new device.
Okay.
Which shocks me.
That does shock me
frankly.
as well. Because my stuff is getting older, and I presume that it wouldn't be compatible
For
just
right
because
now.
Well, but the reality is that almost nothing actually happens in your Alaska device.
That's true. Well, and that's what Apple is trying to do the opposite, right? They want to try and do as much as they can on your local device, and then
Right.
only borrow resources from their own encrypted servers if necessary.
Right. And Google has been doing the same, but
Sure.
they also run into that reality that and Apple's never had a problem saying throw your stuff out. It's
Mhm.
no good anymore.
Well, yeah.
Whereas Google and everybody else has kind of had a problem saying that.
Backward compatibility is very important to
Right.
the PC industry, to
Right.
Linux, to Android in general.
Right.
I would say
And not
Apple's
to
gotten,
Apple.
Apple's gotten a lot better because they started getting flack from environmental groups.
Well, and
Say-
that's the big thing.
and
You end up with a bunch of crap in the
e-waste
forever
stuff.
metals and stuff.
Right.
And it's a real problem.
So they've gone back, they've done some design. They're also making it so that the OS runs on older equipment better. So in the past, you might have a machine that could run for 5 to 6 years on latest OS. And then after that, it was kind of a hard shut off. But now we're seeing stuff extend into 7 into 8 years, which is interesting from a number of perspectives. It allows more machines to be on the latest OS and keep getting the latest security updates,
Right.
which are really, really important.
Well, I
So
I hope they fix the thermal paste.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
And the performance is getting really, really good, especially the performance per watt. The efficiency is very good. So I'm optimistic, but yeah, you're right. The Alaska stuff, a lot of their processing is all happening in the cloud, and then they're spitting back things for the magic person in the box to yell back to you.
Right. So they can easily update everybody to Alaska Plus.
Right.
Without a problem. So we'll see what happens. Right now, 90% apparently of people who own one use it to ask what the weather's going to be like. And that's pretty much it.
Yes, I would say I use it for the weather.
Yeah.
When I'm standing in front of the closet and we're like, what do I need to wear today? What
Yep.
are we, short sleeves, long sleeve, pants, shorts? What are we doing?
Yep. And then when you're going out the door,
Do I need my coat?
Yep.
Or do I just need a jacket? Or can I just do it with a heavy sweatshirt or a sweater? Then I would say the other thing I do is in the kitchen setting timers for
yes.
things. Like put something in the oven. Okay.
Yeah, that's the
Alaska,
other thing. Yep.
timer for 18 minutes. And then if I'm doing 2 different things, I got a timer for this thing and a timer for that thing. It does multiple timers really, really well.
Yeah, it does that.
So I would say 80% of what I do is probably timers and weather.
What I like about timers is you can tell it what the timer is for, which you cannot do on Google.
Oh, yes, right. You can say, set me a pizza timer for 20 minutes.
Right.
Set me.
Or you can say, set me a timer for 20 minutes. It'll say, what's the timer for?
Right.
And you say pizza.
Uh-huh.
And then when it goes off, it says pizza.
Pizza timer is done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That is a unique feature that I haven't seen a lot of other
Yeah. I
tools
do like that.
I don't know if they've got a patent on it or whatever, but
yeah, right.
that's a big deal.
That's a big deal to me. That is The one thing I really like much more on Amazon than I do the way you set timers and
Yeah.
stuff on Amazon is better.
The other thing we do is if we're watching TV and we see like an old TV show and a celebrity is on it, and we say like, you can ask it like, how tall is that celebrity, or how old are they now? And it will come back with a number that we presume is correct.
Yep,
I have no
I've
way to
done-
prove it
I've
either
done
way.
that.
So just miscellaneous general information, or convert. I'll be watching some Australian show where they're talking about reviewing cars, and they say, "Oh, this car makes 200 kilowatts," and I'm like, "Great."
Right.
What is that in freedom units?
Right.
How many horsepower is that? And I can ask Alexa, and it will handle those things.
Yeah.
Or to convert, with all of the political turmoil at the moment, I'm wondering what the exchange rate is for like Canadian dollars in case I want to take a vacation or to
Right.
go to Europe, and getting a sense of how many euros or Canadian dollars can I get.
Right.
Things like that.
And those are useful to Amazon.
Yeah.
But not what they really want.
No. But of course they do. They throw a notification, a little green ring, and they said, "Oh yeah," and I said, "Read the notification." It says, "Well, a company that you follow, has a new thing out. That would you like me to put it in your cart?" And we're like, "Calm down."
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think so.
You haven't ordered cat food in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you love to know about? Wouldn't you love to get the sports scores in the morning? Like, no, I don't.
Yeah, because you can set the automations. I forget what they call them. I don't think maybe they call them automations. But I used to listen to I listened to the news, and then there was a tech service that I listened to.
Okay.
It was all just headlines. I think it was called Daily Tech Headlines. They've gone dark.
Mm.
They still exist, just not on Alexa.
Right.
So I'm trying to find a replacement.
Okay.
I'm not happy with any of them.
Yeah. There's I Can Drive Home podcast. It's sort of like 15 minutes of just what happened that day.
I want 15 seconds. I want 2 minutes.
Want tight.
I want headline.
Okay.
That's all I want. All right. That music tells us we are done for another week, but you're not done because some of you have not gone over and donated. That's your job.
Yeah.
That is job one right now. Head on over to jazz901.org. Hit that big red donate button and make that pledge. And what that does is it means we're more likely to see you next week with a whole lot more of the longest running computer show in the known universe. A whole lot more Dave Enright, a whole lot more Dennis Worcester next week.
I'm going to be here, and I will make sure to have the audio working correctly.
He will
for
do
our live
that.
Streams.
I'm Nick Francesco. We will see you in just 106 to one another, will you? Now you can turn it off.
Stardate April 5th. The Mars InSight lander has been silent for 2.5 years, yet the craft is still teaching us about the red planet.